My name is Bishop Lafer, and this is my DBS Video Discussion. I've chosen to talk about database security. What I have here is a list of the top 10 database security threats. 1 is excessive privilege abuse, 2 legitimate privilege abuse, 3 privilege elevation, 4 database platform vulnerabilities, 5 SQL injection, 6 weak audit trail, 7 denial of service, 8 database communication protocol vulnerabilities, 9 weak authentication, and 10 is backup data exposure. So one of the biggest threats being SQL injection, obviously, is SQL injection is a code injection technique used to attack data-driven applications in which malicious SQL statements are inserted into an entry field for execution. So that's someone trying to input SQL statements into your database via an input field. The reason why they would want to do this is because a successful SQL injection exploit can read sensitive data from the database, modify database data, insert, update, or delete, execute administration operations on the database, such as shut down the database management system, recover the content of a given file present on the database management file system, and in some cases issue commands to the operating system. SQL injection attacks are a type of injection attack in which SQL commands are injected into a data plan input in order to effect the execution of predefined SQL commands. A couple of things that we can do to prevent this is we can use prepared statements or parameterized queries. So you write a query and then as a function in your server-side code and then pass into that function the data that is collected from the input as a parameter. So rather than completing a SQL statement because the input field just places the rest of the SQL statement into place, instead it's passed as a parameter into a predefined function. And so rather than just being true, if a user was to put in for a user name field was to type in this Tom quotation or 1 equals 1, the query would not be vulnerable and would instead look for a username which literally matches the entire string Tom quotation or 1 equals 1. The second would be stored procedures, and the third being escaping all user supplied input. So you can do client-side form validation using JavaScript, and then also you can use encapsulation on the server side and using a setter. It actually provides you with an extra step to validate data before manipulating the database. But not all threats come from the outside. The backup data exposure, oftentimes it's an internal from within the organization, so it's an internal threat. Someone who works for the company is either trying to profit or get revenge on somebody by exposing confidential data from the database. So in order to avoid that, you can encrypt backups and set user privileges, and instead of allowing all users to just have administrative rights and access to all tables, you can create views and only give specific users access to the specific data that pertains to them. That kind of thing. Also, what we've been learning about in this class is the normalization of our database. By separating data out of one massive table, not only increases the functionality of your database, but it also increases the security because it's a little bit more difficult to access the data if you don't know the scheme of the database. Not everyone has access to the ER diagram. So if you don't, if an outside threat doesn't know the database schematic, then it's going to be much more difficult for them to access the confidential data, at least in theory. I think that was everything I wanted to go over. Thank you much. Have a great day.